foundation of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. My name is Michael Evans. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Thank you for joining with us this morning. You know, I got a burr under my saddle yesterday, and I'm going to excise it right now. Yesterday, I got a phone call after receiving an email that there is a date set July 29th for a hearing on the Blueways in West Plains. And that's being sponsored by Billy Long, the representative out of Springfield to the federal House, and being sponsored by Jason Smith, the 8th District representative who recently took over for Joanne the Trader Emerson. A couple of issues surrounding it. One, no one notified me or anyone else in the Blueways captains group. These are the people who really put the effort forth to fight this thing, that this meeting was even scheduled. We heard about it from other folks. I heard about it because someone forwarded me an email from Rep. Billy Long out in Springfield, who's not my rep. Why didn't I hear about it from my own rep? Secondly, I was notified after that Eddie Justice is going to D.C. today to testify on the Blueways. And you can imagine my shock and my outrage. Why, you ask? Well, I was on all the captains' calls. I was in a number of the commission meetings where we went to the county commissioners and outlined the plan and asked and begged and pleaded and fought and demanded their signatures. I was privy to literally hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of emails surrounding it, talking about it, strategizing it, trying to figure out how to beat it, trying to figure out how little Davy could beat Goliath. And amazingly enough, I never saw Eddie Justice's name in any of those emails. I never saw him or heard from him on a conference call. He attended none of the meetings. He didn't even show up at his own county commission meeting. So what exactly is it that qualifies Mr. Justice to go to D.C. and testify before an entire committee hearing when I could think of at least a dozen people who are better qualified to make that testimony? How are they better qualified? Well, for starters, they were in it. Two, they've been studying Agenda 21 and its implications, including the Blue Way and the new MOU, which I'm willing to bet Mr. Justice isn't even aware of. And they actually had boots on the ground, skin in the game. They're the ones who put forth their effort, their time, their voluntary money, filled up their gas tanks at an outrageous price, drove hours upon hours upon hours to attend meetings, rally support, pick up the phone, send emails, talk to people who were in regions where they couldn't make it to try to enlist their support and have them act as a lieutenant to attend a meeting. Mr. Justice wasn't in any of that. I've never heard him mention Agenda 21. I've never heard him mention the Blueways. In fact, Blueway and justice have never been used in the same sentence in any way, shape, or form I've ever heard of until last night. Furthermore, I asked one of Mr. Smith's representatives who paid for Mr. Justice to go to D.C. I asked if they paid, and he said no, but he hedged a bit, which tells me that the party probably paid. And if the party paid, that's wrong. That's a misuse of funds. Here's the real problem, people. One, we weren't notified that we could have submitted testimony or a witness. They have to be invited, which means that Mr. Smith invited Mr. Justice because Mr. Justice is the head of the Republican Party for the 8th District. Now this will all come full circle and you'll get it. Mr. Justice is the head of the Republican Party for the 8th District in Missouri. And he is the fella that basically coordinated the elimination of a primary so that Jason would run as the Republican candidate by default. Now you begin to smell it. What this is the politics of pull. And I resent it. I resent it because that's not what I expect from our representative. I resent it because I don't like party politics. I don't like party payback. I don't like Mr. Smith shoring up Mr. Justice for a potential run, which I'm willing to bet money is exactly what this is about. I resent that we weren't given a chance to submit written testimony when we could have had documentation that was extraordinarily compelling with mountains of evidence, but we were barred from having that opportunity because we weren't notified by our own representative. Instead, our representative elected to invite a party player instead of a battle-scarred warrior. We weren't notified that witnesses were going to be drawn to D.C. We weren't invited to submit a written testimony. Now, I can tell you this. I've seen Doreen Wright. I guarantee that she would have produced a witness testimony that would have blown out of the water anything that Mr. Justice can say. They didn't invite me to write. I don't expect them to invite me to D.C. I'm a radio host. I'm not a politician. But I do expect them to give us a fair crack at a federal investigation. I live and broadcast in West Plains. That's my living room. And they set up a party for the 29th of January in my living room and never told me. I think that would be classified as the height of hubris, arrogance. I'm not even going to give you the last word. I'm going to withhold that. You see, what I'd like to know, and what I want you to do today as listeners, is I want you to call down to Mr. Smith's office. And I want him to know that we are not going to sit here like lemmings, like the rest of the nation, and blindly accept what he has in store for us. So I'm going to give this phone number out, and I'm going to give it out a number of times, because I want you to write it down. I don't care if you write it on the back of your hand with a Sharpie magic marker. Before lunchtime, I want this number used. Because I want him to understand that we, the electorate, his employers, his bosses, demand transparency and accountability from him and from this party. If you voted Republican, you're his boss on two fronts. One, you're a taxpayer, and two, you voted for him as a Republican. Who paid for Justice to go to D.C.? I want to know. Who invited him? I demand to know. Why was he chosen? I insist on an answer. What kind of testimony can he give when he wasn't on a single conference call out of dozens that even I attended? And I even missed a few. Doreen, Ike Skelton, Bob Parker, Mike Slack, folks down in Arkansas, folks out in Springfield, never missed a one. Why weren't they chosen? Why weren't they given an opportunity to provide written testimony that could have been read into the congressional record, that would have stayed on the congressional record as proof, evidence? How is it that Mr. Justice was chosen? And what kind of testimony can he give when he wasn't in a single conference call or attended a single meeting? He never communicated with any of the Blueway captains, as they were called. Those were the organizers. So ask yourself this question, and then ask Mr. Smith's office for clear and explicit answers. And I want his phone to burn down today. I want his phone on meltdown. You know why? Because if we don't nip this kind of hubris in the bud, we will forever lose our opportunity to put him on notice that as a freshman representative and as a brand new elected, freshly minted, still wet behind the ears with ink representative, we don't matter. And I'm here to tell you, we do. It's up to us to make it apparently, let me rephrase that, abundantly clear that we're not going to sit here and allow him to make decisions that affect us without our input. I mean, is this not more of exactly what we were griping about with the Blueways? That elected politicians made decisions in a vacuum without input from us, the electorate, the affected, the landowner, the farmer? Is that not the same? Is this what we should expect going forward from our newly minted representative in D.C.? Party politics? The politics of pull? I demand answers. And you should too. I did demand answers yesterday, and I didn't get them. I got a lot of backpedaling. I got a lot of spin. I got a lot of I don't knows. And to me, that smells like rotten fish. I have no problem with Eddie Justice as a person. I've had him on my show. I've interviewed him. I do have a problem when he's the chosen to go testify at on an issue which is so important to our community, and yet he doesn't know a damn thing about it. He knows what he read. He's probably studying on the plane. But he doesn't know. He doesn't know, and he didn't do any homework, any digging. He wasn't on the conference calls with the Department of the Interior. I know he wasn't. I was. Does he know about the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the National Great Rivers Research and Education Center, the memorial of understanding between those groups and the United States Army Corps of Engineers on the Mississippi Valley Division? Does he know about that? I don't know. But I can tell you that this is a document which outlines, and was signed in October of 2010, which outlines a greater conspiracy on the Blueways even than the Blue Way. In fact, the Blue Way was a piece of this. So, my challenge is, Mr. Smith, now that you've gone to Washington, explain yourself. Young man, report back to your employers and answer. What have you done with what we've given you? Are you playing fast and loose with our authority, our livelihood, our land, our communities, our future and our children's future? Are you playing politics already? The ink isn't even dry yet, sir. I don't expect answers. As your employer and a taxpayer, I demand them. And I want you to do the same. Area code 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. I want to see the switchboard melt down this morning, because this is our one opportunity in the earliest stages of his future incumbency, because we know you can never get an incumbent out, to put him on notice that we're not only holding his feet to the fire, but if he attempts to try to run away with our rights, we're going to hold him in the fire. And this is the first step to that. Welcome to the show. Hi, caller, you're on.
Hey, Mike, Bob Parker, how are you this morning?
Well, hey, Bob Parker. Why aren't you in D.C.?
Well, it's kind of, again, just kind of one of those things. You make a lot of excellent points this morning, and I share your
frustration,
frustration,
and outrage. And for the record, I wanted somebody to know. I want our audience to know something. I did not have a conversation with you about this, and I didn't discuss this with you at all because I didn't want to. Frankly, I thought about calling you last night after I found out about this, and I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give his assistant a chance to give me a call back. I didn't get a call back last night, and so this morning I felt like, this is exactly what we just got rid of in Joanne Emerson. And I can think that, I know you're a good writer. I know Doreen is a good writer. I can get it if he doesn't want to send somebody to D.C. You are a competitor of his in the political arena.
Sure,
and
I understand that.
I get it. He doesn't want to bring his arch nemesis into a committee hearing. Although, frankly, if he had any intelligence, he would have done that as a healing measure. That's the truth. Think about that for a minute. Not only you, Bob, but the audience. Think about that. If the guy had any intelligence, he would have said, here's an opportunity for me to offer a solution that will heal our party. And he didn't take it.
Well, it's sad that the ball's been dropped in a whole bunch of areas. And one of the issues that concerns me, other than a lot of the things, but you've mentioned it, is, we have this MOU with the agencies and how they've created basically this super agency to implement Agenda 21 programming all across the country. And that's really our next fight, because that's what gave birth to the Blue Way. I mean, the Blue Way programming, I mean, yeah, we defeated this designation, but the same super agency organization is still in effect, is still creating this kind of stuff, and will do more in our area. And that's what it's so important now to expose, and that's what I feel like would be a tremendous opportunity in this testimony in Washington, D.C., to help expose and try to get rid of Agenda 21 and all the money that funds it. And that's what I would like Jason Smith to take a position on to this. I've asked on my Facebook page, and I've asked him in personal messages, where does he stand on Agenda 21? Where does he stand on getting out of the United Nations? And I get no reply back from him. And while I certainly do appreciate his effort to stop the Blue Way, it came at the very end of the fight that many of us were involved in, exposing it and trying to get it killed. And again, I appreciate that. But, and I've talked about leading from behind. I mean, we need leaders that'll lead from the front, that will take up these issues and work on them. And, it's just political payback. When they use these kind of things for political payback to someone like Eddie Justice, when you hear that name, it's like, where was he in any of this? I mean, we had to send somebody down from Kansas City to Butler County to present the information to the commissioners about the Blueways. We couldn't even get anybody. Eddie Justice had nothing to do with it. It's 2 blocks from his office. It's where the courthouse is in Poplar Bluff. I mean, he did nothing over there, and now it's like he's up in Washington, D.C. taking the credit for stopping the Blueways, and I just think it's outrageous.
Well, I'll tell you something else. I posted it up on Jason Smith's page this morning, what I posted up on my Facebook page, and I copied it because I knew it was going to disappear. And guess what? It has. And what I put up there was the same thing I just asked you, which is, so can you explain why the people in West Plains were only notified of the meeting by a rep in Springfield, or why Eddie Justice is testifying on Blueways to a committee panel when he wasn't even heard from in the fight? Gone. Yeah, that tells me something, ladies and gentlemen. That tells me that we're not into transparency. That tells me that what we're into is censorship. And if my rep is censoring me, I am smoking hot. Jason Smith has just fired a shot across the bow that he will regret.
Well, we have a whole group of people here that are working hard to protect our freedom, protect our property rights, protect our region, our economic viability, and everything else. And we're like some orphan down here that doesn't even have a place at the table with our representative on a lot of these issues, and and instead you bring in these political payback kind of things, and it doesn't work. It's not good for the people in this district. That's my point. I don't care if I was snubbed over whatever or whoever, but the point is, what's the best for this district? What best represents this district? And this kind of leadership does not best represent this district.
You're damn straight. Hey, Bob, thanks. We're out of time for the break. Thank you, sir. Folks, you're listening to America's Voice. Find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. Find us on YouTube at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. Call Jason Smith's office today at 202-224-3121 and demand answers now.
We are the